Welcome back to Seed to Harvest, a podcast of founders, creators, and investors about their stories, frameworks, and tactics. Today, I'm joined by Emily Herrera. I was pausing for a purr.
Hi. Hey.
Purr, creator and investor from Night Ventures. If you don't already know Em from Twitter, you may know her from her previous roles as the regional community lead for Built by Girls and as a venture fellow at On Deck, Republic, Dorm Room Fund, and Contrary. Before becoming an investor at Night, she worked at Harlem Capital and BBG Ventures. Em is also the founder and syndicate lead for the YRS, the Women Student Startup Network for young women defining, using, and creating technology. And welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here.
I'm so excited. I know we were goofing off a little before the show, which I'm so excited. I feel like our friendship started as, how did we get connected? Do we DM each other? Do we get introduced by someone?
It was such a DM. It was a fangirl DM from me.
I love that.
It was literally, I had 3 girls in my community bring up like, hey, what's the syndicate thing that I keep hearing about? This was last year, early COVID.
Mhm.
And I just started Googling like, what the hell is a syndicate? I didn't even know what a syndicate was. And immediately I found your like OG, I forgot, like the futuristic meme syndicate.
No, you DM me about
playbook.
the book. You DM me earlier. I'm going to
I-
fact check this.
Oh,
You
I
DM me about
did.
Seed to Harvest November 7th of 2020. Said not a future of work investor, but look forward to cheering on your project. And then we were talking about the syndicate.
Oh, I was a simp even back then. I remember that. That's so true.
It was so sweet.
But part of that, the next interaction was me being like, hey, I love this syndicate thing.
Oh, yeah, the Republic Syndicate session or something.
The Republic syndicate session. That was it.
Yeah, that was lit. Anyway, so Em and I go way back on the internet in internet years.
Oh, yeah. Early COVID.
Yeah, early COVID, manic energy. So you've grown your Twitter community to now over 15K creators, founders, and investors. Can you share a little bit more about, okay, first your first like dopamine hit on Twitter when you like hit,
Yeah.
that first viral tweet where you're like, and then kind of like how your tweeting has, or your like public persona has evolved over time as you, I think it's like, this is something I've been thinking about a lot, is like, when I started tweeting, I was like a college student, so I would just like tweet about like random stuff I was thinking about. And now I like, now I'll like overthink it a bit more because I'm like, we're on Fund 2 and like have institutional investors. It's like, I'm no longer
Totally.
a student in college, and that's not like my public perception, but sometimes I still feel like one, which is fabulous. So I'm curious to hear more about your experience. First dopamine and then how it's evolved.
Yeah, so my first real dopamine hit actually didn't happen on my own account. So the dirty goss here
Whoa.
is I used to run 2 different fan accounts, which were anonymous when I was in middle school going into high school. And I think cumulative, those were around like 50K followers. I will
What were they fan
absolutely
accounts for?
never. I was gonna say, I'm not gonna say it, but I'll just say it. It was Ariana Grande and One Direction.
Good
Her.
topic. Yeah, great big market.
Yeah. Huge market. I had always been really into online communities, which makes me sound like as much of a dork as I probably am. I loved memes. I loved kind of like the fan fiction culture. I loved, yeah, just like the niche aspects of people that I loved. I was a huge Harry Styles stan. It was just kind of like something that as a teenage girl, I just kind of just grew into. So I started really making memes and tweets in general through those 2 accounts. One other one I ran with one of my middle school best friends.
Ever
which
get
sadly
into
we're no
like
longer
a
friends
fight
anymore.
over the fan account?
No, actually,
Different.
it was like even if we got into fights about middle school girl stuff, like we were like 2
bonded
little
together.
business people. We'd sit down and be like, we have to actually execute. We have a schedule that we need to do. It was so funny. But yeah, so that was kind of my first real hit there. I will say that I will never publicly say what accounts those were because I was a raunchy little high schooler and I would just say the most ludicrous stuff that I never want my parents to see.
You're like the
So
one standing
that was like
the
the
ship
real
rumors and like starting some
Oh
your own.
yeah, I was in all the stands. I used to write fan fiction, like the whole
I love
gambit,
that.
which I've never said on a
A full
podcast. I've never said that before.
spectrum
So
stan.
Yeah,
businesswoman.
or full stan. So that was like my first real interaction on Twitter, and that was probably up until freshman year of college. I kind of stopped doing that. But on a so I had that. I started that in 2013. My personal account I also had on 2013, and just kind of the same language that I had used on my Stan accounts, I started using on my personal accounts. And that was just because
Mm,
my
that's super
closest
interesting.
literally my
Yeah, it's like
closest friends.
different
Yeah,
language.
yeah, I mean, that language was, like, really encouraged in, like, the fan groups, and a lot of my real closest friends in middle school and high school going into college were people that also kind of grew up in those similar online communities, so I just didn't really feel the need to, like, change the way that I was talking. Yeah, so that was all of that, and then also I think, like, kind of growing up on Twitter compared to people that maybe might be, like, 15, 20 years older, it's like, you just get used to internet talk, and sometimes it just kind of kicks you in the butt, but you can't really get
It's
rid of it once
yeah, it
you
was funny. I
start.
was like editing your podcast questions, and it's like one of those things
Yeah.
where it's like a language that you can drop into, and I think people can hear the difference, but it does take like two
Yep.
people talking in it to be able to go deep. And so my
Yeah.
next question would be, as a Gemini, how do you think your star sign reflects in your investing?
So as a Gemini, I used to be a journalist throughout college, and I basically just have always been really interested in stories. I get really lost in stories. Yeah, I think I'm really interested in timelines. I'm interested in just like networks. I'm interested in just how people interact. That's like very fundamental to a Gemini is like how human beings are talking and interacting and the different flavors. I think they're very respectful of like niche communities. It's very much so like a very observational kind of star sign. So I think I'm a more observational VC. Like
Mm,
if someone comes to me and presents a really niche kind of problem, I'm probably not going to off the bat say this is a stupid idea or a bad idea or a bad market or a bad problem.
mhm.
I'm probably just going to go and investigate that scene more. And it could be the weirdest kind of thing ever, but I think it is probably super beneficial to my career as an investor because I'm not judgmental. Like the nichier, like the cooler to
That's sick. Do you know much about Leos?
I do.
You do? Would you say that
Yeah,
me as a well, yeah, what you know about me from the internet reflects me being a
sure.
Leo?
Honestly, no. So,
Interesting.
well, kind of.
Okay.
I think it is so Leo of you for being our age. No, it's actual. I think being our age and raising your own independent fund requires a certain level of confidence and
Mm,
like knowing yourself that kind of like a fluttery Gemini would be very like, I don't know, maybe I get very nervous sometimes, but Leos are very much so like they fit the GP role really well. Instead of it being very like investigative, it's very like confident. You
mm.
know, you're gonna own it. Like I'm sure your LPs are absolutely in love with you because they're like, Paige just knows what she's doing, you know?
Uh,
So yeah, you
Wait,
have
yeah, what was your,
the
like,
confidence.
hesitation there, though? Because initially you were like, "Huh, that's interesting."
As a
Yeah.
Leo. Well, just because you as a person, like at any time that I've interacted with you on a person to person basis, it's more like, how can I help you? Or how can
Mm,
I kind of provide something? And that's not super
dang.
Leo.
Maybe that's something in, like, my moon
Um,
signs. I feel like I should learn more about astrology. I actually don't know that much about it.
you know what's a great
CoStar?
app? And I'm shilling something. So CoStar, yeah,
Mhm. A
but
different one?
I really like actually the CoStar CEO, and I really hope that that team doesn't get mad. But Pattern,
Ooh.
have you had
No, I haven't
Pattern?
downloaded it, but someone recommended it.
You have
Okay,
to.
cool.
It is so good, especially if you're not really into like the spirituality aspect
I'd say
of
I am. I just haven't like dove
astrology.
in deep into the language of astrology beyond like Googling
Yeah,
what my sign or like the signs of my middle school crushes were and if we were compatible, you
fair,
know? Like that was kind of the
fair.
extent that I
Yeah.
got to. But yeah, I don't know. Okay, so on terms of well, okay, so this conversation I would say is really interesting to me because like you as a creator have also grown up as a digital native and are in the
Yep.
venture space and investing in the companies that you really see like driving the future of culture forward. So I'm curious like
Mhm.
What was the moment that you realized venture was the career that you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, the actual moment I can't really think of. I've been really passionate about getting smart people the resources that they need to keep doing whatever they want to do in their passions.
Mm,
My is actually my north node or ascendant node is in Leo, and that is very much so like territorial of me. Like if I have a group of people that I really believe in, like I'm gonna get them whatever they
mhm.
need. Like that's I don't know if
I
that's
love
very
that.
like
No,
specific
I
node, you know what I
also love that
mean?
we run in star signs this. Have you ever talked about that on a podcast before?
All the guys at night are gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna turn this one off." Like,
It's no for
this is
me.
not for you guys. Yeah, but yeah, I'm very much so kind of I don't know what aspect of that me that it is, but it's almost like kind of not momish. I don't want to say the word
No,
momish
but, like,
because
maternal vibes. Like, you're
it's
like
very maternal.
yeah, you're like,
Yeah,
I want the people in my communities to succeed, I wanna make sure that I'm, like, helping them
totally.
succeed. So it's kind of like that trait that carried you through, and then did you have a moment where you, like for me, it was, like, binge watching Silicon Valley, and I was like, "Oh, that instinct is
Mhm.
actually, like, reflective in venture," even though it kind of got a bad rap
Yeah.
when I was, like, learning about it.
Yeah, yeah. So the story kind of goes I had joined one of those venture fellow programs you mentioned before, realized a lot of the vibe was very masculine and like not very focused on
Mhm.
consumer. Started spending a lot of time talking to the girls that were there just because my background was a lot in women's community building, et cetera. So that was just like a natural instinct of me. And I just realized that, yeah, a lot of the women were interested in either building stuff full
Mhm.
time, didn't really feel like in college they've had like the support system to kind of just let them try
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
and build out their own personal networks. And that's kind of how Wires started. And kind of off of that too, that first venture partner program was the first time I ever realized that people get and give $1 million probably like, 100 times over every day, and that was not something that I had grown up with
Mhm.
at all. I didn't realize how normal it was for people, and it got me like personally very frustrated that I didn't normalize that within
Yeah.
myself.
Thing.
But I
I had, like, a very similar
yeah.
experience where I was like, people casually throw around the word million. Like, it's they don't even spell it out, they
Oh
just put
yeah.
an M. Like, that was, like,
Yep.
so not in my vocabulary growing up. Continue, but
Yep.
I
Yeah.
think that, like, getting desensitized almost to that while, like,
Yep.
having the similar level of fiduciary responsibility, but it's like, "Oh, this is something that will be, like, under that I will be, like, interacting with, not just, like, that I'll see and, like,
Totally.
whatever." Not on the vision board
Totally. It's
anymore.
like yeah, yeah, yeah. Now I'm in this bitch. Like, now I kind of get how people get
Eh.
desensitized to that, but it hasn't left
Yeah.
me yet. Giving and getting $1 million in itself, even more so $100,000
Mhm.
is a lot to an average everyday person. But so yeah, so I had this community and really it more formalized once I realized that these really smart women wanted a more feminine kind of
Mhm.
network, and I was like, "Yeah, I know how to do that." And then it really started off as more like social
Mhm.
capital just because I didn't have any money,
Yeah.
and I was like an intern still. And then it just really quickly was like, "Hey, like this is what we're doing. Like, we have this kind of traction and blah blah blah. Like people are raising money. I just want to raise like 100K or
Mhm.
500K or like $1 million. Like, who do I talk to and what do I do?" And because of my experience at Girls Who Code and Built by Girls, I've been around enough people where I was like, I could chat with a couple of people and see how I could grab maybe like 10K,
Mhm.
20K. But yeah, that was kind of that that really hooked me on because it was like it was finding the story and finding the person,
Mhm.
and then it was just like I got to get you what you need because I want to see this
Yeah.
happen and I want to see you succeed. And that I think especially in the larger venture sphere, people don't really want to talk about their personal relationships with founders and like how they really believe in the issues. And sometimes, when I think a lot of VCs roadmap and do all this kinds of stuff, like that's just a personal interest.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like I think a lot of this stuff is really built off of maybe like 7 or 8 influential VCs that have personal interests in certain kinds of spheres. And I think that that's fine, but
Yeah.
not many people really want to talk about those personal relationships and personal interests. So that was kind of the sticker onto there. And then kind of the jump was I ended up leaving school around a year and a half ago and took a couple of internships and contract roles. And the real flip was actually my time at BBG. I was doing wireless with a number of different things with that. And Nisha from BBG Ventures kind of was the first person to tell me that like women are the majority consumer and
Mhm.
also creator of basically everything in the entire world. So when you're focusing on women consumer, you're basically focusing on consumer in
Mhm.
general. And I hadn't really realized that that would put me at such a better position than a lot of the people that were around me when it came to consumer.
Mhm.
Like consumer is really hard to do, but I think like I have the more self-aware
Yeah.
aspect to know that. And then also just like I will try to figure out this niche as much as I possibly
Mhm.
can in any way possible. And that's really where creator kind of came in. But so I would say BBG Ventures was the moment that I realized like I could totally do
Yeah.
this, and I had to get my girls at Wireless as much access as
I
possible.
love that. And I think like a lot of that goes into like growing up being a consumer and being a woman. It's like you build
Yeah.
a level of intuition for products that's honed over you making like thousands of purchasing decisions in your life, whether that's like
Yeah.
the like brand of like tissue that you use or it's like the dress that you're getting for school. It's like you're considering like sometimes it can be like 10, sometimes it can be hundreds of like different options
Yeah.
and you go through so many of them, so your, like, intuition is really fine-honed, and we joke about this, like, a lot, but for the non-Gen Zs
Yeah.
listening, can you define a vibe check? Because I think they're pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah. Vibe checks are, I would equate those if someone's an LP or a larger GP to like signaling funds or signaling
Mhm.
angels. These are people who have maybe not formalized criteria for what's going to work in a market, but have networks to kind of
Validate?
understand. Yeah,
Understand, yeah.
yeah, they have personal networks that are gonna validate kind of both the problem and the solution. That's like a more, I guess, official way of doing that. And then also kind of the emergence of founder market
Mhm.
fit of like a year and a half ago. I think I can meet probably any founder that's marketing for a consumer product for my, I would say age group, even
Yeah.
probably just specific demographic, and know if this is going to create a cult following. So the equivalent there is like I fell in love with Emily Weiss when I was like 16 years
Yeah.
old because I wanted to be Emily Weiss. And basically, if I can present that founder to any person in like a younger demographic and they're not obsessed with that story and that founding story, then that's enough of a gut check to know that that's not really gonna to work. But it really comes along to like a personal network
Mhm.
that's gonna know if that can work or not work.
I like that it's like
But also the
yeah,
vibe,
you
yeah.
define it as, like, network driven. I guess I hadn't thought of that before. Like, I've thought of it as
Mhm.
more of, like, an internal version, but I feel like sometimes my internal version is me being like, "What would this person think of that?" And then I'm usually like, "Mm."
Yeah,
Or I'll just, like, text
that's most of it.
my brother Owen he's, like, 19, and I'll just, like, text him stuff, and
Mhm.
he's like he'll text me
Yep.
back, like, "They're trying too hard," or like, "Meh." Like
Mhm.
and I'm like, "Perfect. Thank
Well,
you,
if you think
Owen."
about it, if here's the thing though, like you have that intimate relationship with your
Yeah.
brother that you know that he's gonna tell you the truth.
Mhm.
You know, it's not gonna be like if my mom sends my, younger cousin a founder, they're gonna be like,
Yeah, of course they're
you
cool.
know,
Yeah.
what like like there's more pressure around that rather than just me like sending it to one of my friends that maybe are still in
Mhm.
school. They know that, you know, you kind of cut through any kind of intimidation when looking at a company and it's like let me just tell you my raw opinion on this product.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of the gut
I
check.
love that.
Yeah, and also the vibe check of like if it's a Gen Z consumer thing, like I will rip if the gut
She's
check's not
mm,
passing,
mm,
block.
slay.
I will block it.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about the firm that you work for. So, Night Ventures serves as both a
Cool.
venture firm and multimedia talent management. One of those creators
Yeah.
specifically being Mr. Beast. So, I'm curious
Yeah.
what creators or experiences have stood out to you since starting your position. It's gonna be internal to Night or it can be external, but
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, what are you thinking about? Like, who do you like following?
Yeah.
Actually, I want to be more specific. Who are your favorite YouTubers? Favorite three? Go.
My favorite 3 YouTubers?
Yeah.
Okay. So The gut is honestly Cody Ko. That's a cult following there. I'll watch any of that. I have a very niche sense of humor, so I feel like he's one of the only guys that actually gets my sense of humor. What I'll do is I'll pull up my YouTube and I'll tell
I
you
love that.
my most watched right
Been
now.
really on home design.
Um,
So I like this girl named Paige Wassel. And then do you watch any Lynette
that sounds
Adkins?
familiar.
She's like a spirit. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Fire. So
And
good.
then
Really looking up.
Hitomi, I forget her last name, but she's like also like
Oh
yeah.
yeah. She's an OG,
Yeah, she
right?
is OG.
Yeah. She's an OG. I really like this guy, Drew Joyner.
Ooh.
He's a like fashion kind of creator and he breaks down a lot of like very nuanced
Ooh. Like
fashion communities.
Mina Lee, kind of like similar
Kind of
editorial.
like that. But Mina's also amazing because she's a storyteller.
Mm.
I feel like he's more like this is what's going
Best
on
and worst,
in,
understanding
this.
fundamentals. Oh, gotcha. That
Yeah,
makes
yeah, yeah.
sense.
He's a fundamentals kind of
That's
guy.
cool.
So I trust him a lot. Who else is in my most watch? Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna say her name right. Liani Ozark.
Ooh.
She's more like
Yeah.
editorial. Like she's kind of an OG. I think she was an
How do
OG
you define OG?
Instagram.
Like, is that like the platform they
Ooh,
started
that's a
out
great
on, or
question.
is it like you said Hitomi is like OG?
Yeah.
I think she started in
Yeah.
2016, something like that. Let me look it up.
Yeah. I mean, that's a definitely relative term, but for me, yeah, OG's around 2015 to 2018, maybe 2013 to 2018,
Mm,
like Gabby DiMartino, I think, like OG,
yeah. Then
like
there's like Jenna Marbles.
Troye
That's like
Sivan.
another layer of OG, right?
That's like yeah, I was like 12, you know?
Yeah, but that was like another layer. This is like the OG of the folks that are like still creating content, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'm trying to think of who else has been super creative. Those are kind of oh, I've been watching a lot of what is that guy called? A lot of like hip hop culture breakdowns.
Ooh, dang, that sounds
I
awesome. I watch
forgot.
a lot of like interviews. Like, I love a good. There's a really good Flatbush Zombies interview that I watched. I don't remember who interviewed them, but it was really good.
You should send all of them to
I
me.
will.
Oh, one genre that I don't know any singular name of a creator, but I love the live stream DJ
Ooh,
kind of creator.
ooh, the Fred
Ever
Again
watched those? I can
Boiler
send you a
Room,
whole
or do you like more
fire.
of like
I like
in-home
randos.
in-home
Like people
randos?
that are like sunset, like house mix. Like I'll watch that for sure. And I'll say that it's
That's
bad.
awesome.
Hold on. There's this one guy that
I feel
I
like I'm really excited for the people in our
loved.
demographic that are listening, and 60% of them are over the age of 30. So I'm really excited for them to all learn a lot about internet culture
Oh,
in this.
yeah,
Thank
for
you for
sure.
listening. Please let me know if you learned
Wait, hold
anything
on.
about internet culture on this episode with them.
Yeah. And also like I'm gonna plug myself for a second.
Yeah,
I've been
please
meaning to
do.
do it for a long time. I want to I just don't know what medium to kind of put it on. Like I want
Ooh.
to break down kind of like how people are looking at different kinds of creators.
Yeah, that's what well,
And just
like,
like a personal
yeah, you
curation.
talking about like, oh, this person's more editorial, this person is like a fundamentalist. Like, I think that looking at creators from
Yeah.
that categorization, that hit
Yeah.
something that kind of hit different. I was gonna say it hit something,
It
but it did
really
hit different. I
yeah,
like that.
it's an online culture that we grew up with that you just it's like one of those things where you had to be there to really experience it. Like as an example, if we go back to Mr. Beast for a second, I totally admire his content, but I think everyone knows kind of at night is like that wasn't really my core demographic.
Yeah,
Like when I was the most online, like you're probably the most online ever when you're probably 12 to like
yeah.
16. I would spend years with like Troye Sivan and back when like PewDiePie was like sick, I had a massive crush on him.
The crush
That was
too.
kind
The
of like
crush is crazy. You mentioned something that I want to like dig deeper on is like, what do you think about the
hit me.
pressure for young people to be creators? So there's all these stats about like people wanting to be creators, but
Mm,
can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on like there may be like a social pressure to like be online? It's kind of
yeah.
like rebellious to be offline. Let's chat
Yeah,
about that.
totally. I think about this constantly because I think it's a similar pressure for for honestly millennials
Mm-hmm.
because millennials don't want to be they don't want to be online, but then they don't want to be out of the
It's
loop.
like they don't want to be
And I think
left
kind of the
behind, but it's not, it's like the online
yeah,
medium doesn't necessarily like They're kinda like, okay.
Yeah, I think that's more of a mishap on, like, general media not really covering online culture correctly.
Mm.
So, I think people unnecessarily feel like they have to be, like, creating and interacting and blah, 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 but realistically, you don't really have
It's
to.
kinda like you're just I feel like that's, like, also what I
Yeah.
just started being online because I was, like, vibing, and I was just like, "This
Yeah,
is my free
literally.
time, I'm gonna, like, tweet about random stuff and, like, tag people if I think things
Totally.
are cool and, like, answer people's questions that they're asking," and there's no strategy, like, none. Yeah,
Totally. Totally. I'm gonna let you in on kind of the night
please do.
secret. The
The
secret. I'm
secret.
gonna let you the secret. Dropping the secret.
ASMR.
I think we're I just start ASMRing all of Night's secrets. Just kidding. Reed is probably gonna watch this and be embarrassed. No, I think it's something that we think about a lot is like, I forgot the stat. It's like, over 70% of younger people grow up and say they want to be a YouTuber
Mhm,
or some kind of TikToker or something like that. But the reality is like the majority, at least in like modern studies, the majority of full-time creators don't make that much money.
mhm.
And I think kind of there's still that American, sense of work versus identity thing. And I think a lot of people want to identify as a creator, but I don't know if a lot of young people really want to work as a creator because they
Oh, that's
haven't really
interesting.
experienced,
Yeah,
a lot of the work of it
would
yet.
you say that, like, in terms of, like, your identification I'll explain, like, mine, then I'm curious to, like, hear more what yours is. Like,
Tell me.
mine is, like, I'm
Yeah.
a creator first, and being an investor in venture
Yeah.
was, like, the area that I am super interested in and chose to dive deep
Yeah.
on, and so now, like, running a venture fund is, like, part of the portfolio of being a creator. But I'm curious, like, how you think about the categorization of
Totally.
being a creator in terms of, like, your career.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So actually off of that, you're kind of the ideal, person that I'm betting on in the future, like for sure. Like I had this part of this thesis for my syndicate, which was like investing as a form of curation.
Mm, mhm.
And like when you get to a point of attention, you now feel both the pressure and also the opportunity to create an experience for the people that are following
Yeah.
you. And investing is just like anything else, right? Like you want to create a good experience to people who follow you and want for you to express your, creative interests and professional interests in a way that aligns with you as a
Mhm.
person. So yeah, so that is ideal. You are like, key person in this. I'd put you on a
I feel
bulletin
like
board, be like, this is investing as a form of
do
curation.
you know what's funny? I feel like almost when I started, I was like, "Oh, this is, like, so new," and, like, no one our age is on Twitter, and I was just, like, the
Yeah.
young person in the room, and now I feel like almost like an elder statesman of, like, Gen Z VC. I'm like
No,
it's so
no, it's so
funny.
not true.
Okay, cool.
So not true. I think there's a wait, what was your original question?
Um,
You asked about kids
oh,
going
yeah, the pressure for
into
young people to be
into
creators.
pressure of young people to create. Okay, so
Yeah.
I think, creator is being a creator as a job is very, very fun. I think it's created a revolution of just, post like 1960s industrialization, blah blah. Like we now live for buying cars, etc. Like all that stuff. I think people are now like kind of over that, especially young people are like, I don't know, I don't want to be like depressed and hate my life. And like most people have like some form of creative expression,
Mhm.
if that's in production, if that's in written word, if that's in investing. Like people want to have a personal stamp on what they're doing. I think that that's super valid in the way that America used to run.
Mhm.
So this is just like kind of the exit of that. What's super cool actually is another part of the thesis that I have is in that kind of early future of work, pre-professional to professional transition, like colleges do not work in helping you create a career for yourself, blah blah blah. I'm finding a lot of younger people seeing very obviously the leverage that they have in having a social following and applying that directly to the jobs that they have and literally negotiating that into contracts and being a forward facing person because blah blah blah, like the shift in the attention economy is going to younger people for a majority of brands, whether that's smart or not, I don't really know, but brands need to interact with younger people, right? Like they don't even know how to do that still
Mhm.
in like a super meaningful way, and a lot of it is, hiring a younger person to run a TikTok for the company. A lot of it is, creating community of other beta testers that are around their age group. And those are experiences that I think a lot of younger people are seeing
Mhm.
and kind of want a taste of.
Mm.
And then also just like a personal anecdote of that, like that is something that I personally think about for my career. Like I know that I have a really specific place in the venture community right now, and I think that the guys that I work with recognize that and appreciate it. And I think now the shift is going to be on managers kind of taking that power dynamic and appreciating it, because it's not disrespectful. It's not anything that's going to be like truly impacting the way that business is run. It's just kind of like this person has put a lot of effort into cultivating a community and has access to, to leads for sales, for opportunities to
Mhm.
invest, to other experts that maybe I wouldn't personally have. And I think if managers adopt that kind of mentality themselves, then they'll really, be able to kind of push smaller businesses, maybe not larger. But long story short, the actual key to everything is going to be the jobs that are around creators.
Mhm.
I think most people are going to try to be creator full time, realize you don't make that much
And it's a
money.
lot of work. I think,
Have
like, building
It's a
on it
lot of
building on a team, though, like, once you have, like, a
yeah,
team around you, for example, shout out Tate,
yeah.
who edits all my podcasts.
Shout out Tate.
Shout out Riley,
Love
who
Tate.
writes a lot of
Shout out Riley.
questions
My
for
girl.
the for the podcast. Like,
Yeah.
that made it so much more manageable to be like, "Okay, cool, I'm gonna put out, like, a high quality podcast every week on, like,
Mhm.
YouTube, do social shorts." Like, I definitely couldn't do that without a team. So I feel like the
Yeah.
teams of creators will only continue to grow as they see, like,
Yeah.
traction in their viewership and revenue.
And hiring is such a like question mark
Yeah.
for most
It's super hard. Like,
creators.
hiring your first person as a
Yeah.
creator, you're like, "Is my job real?" Like, I have a lot of work to do,
Yeah.
and it's really, like, scary because 'cause I'm in front of a lot of people, and I don't want someone to mess it up, and this is, like, my whole stamp,
Yeah.
but also, like, I can't be spending my whole day editing, which
Totally.
is yeah.
Totally. And like the real excitement, at least for all of us, is like that there are a lot of people who will continue to do their own jobs. Not everyone's to become a creator, not everyone's
Mhm.
to want to become a creator. They will keep doing that, but they will support people who have individual communities who they love, people that they love working with. And it's really just like another unlock for the gig economy. But now yeah, I think that hasn't really been discussed yet. Is like what happens when you try to become a creator and maybe you just don't like it, or maybe it's just not for you. It's not fitting into your lifestyle. It's like you'd want to work with your favorite creator. Like, would I love to be, a writer, like a jokes writer for Cody Co? Like that'd be fire. Like I would love
That's
that.
so
You know what I mean? And it won't even be because of the necessarily money. It'd just be because I love it,
yeah.
and that's going to be my kind of form of
I
expression.
love that. Okay,
Um.
well, I know we're wrapping
Anywho,
up, but who
yeah, yeah,
one
yeah.
last question, who has had the greatest impact on
Yep.
your journey so far? Can be as an investor in life, etc.
In life. Ooh,
Ooh.
I don't want to give him the airtime, but I'm going to give him the airtime. I'm probably going to say my boss, Ben. We love
Go
Ben.
Ben.
Go, Ben. I think he kind of gets a lot of the stuff that I sometimes say or don't say about like how I see venture, about my interest in it, a lot of these theses and stuff. I think he actually really respects it.
Mhm.
And I think he's probably one of the first people that's interacted with me
Equal.
as a both a creator, a full-time. He's the first person to ever call me a creator in my life, which was I know it's so sad. But he kind of got the gist of what I was doing. Like I was really trying to craft an entire career,
Mhm.
and gave me the professional, like the full apprentice offering. And he's a Scorpio and I'm a Gemini, so we fight a lot. But yeah, I think I feel super professionally fulfilled with this job, and I give a lot of the credit. I give it to all the guys that I work with, but Ben has been really a great mentor for me, and kind of the stability of both this like apprenticeship and working on this platform and doing all stuff that we do was what really formalized my leaving school and doing this full time.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I don't think anyone else has pushed me that hard. Like I didn't expect to be like grilled, but I've been grilled, and it's been really great. It's given me a lot of confidence.
I
So
love that.
shout out Ben.
Yay. Shout out
We love
Ben.
Ben.
Okay, well, I am so happy that we got to spend this time together. I feel like this was such a
Yeah.
fabulous time with
Same.
you. I hope our listeners enjoyed, and I'll drop M's Twitter links in our show notes today. Definitely go follow her on Twitter. She is tweeting some amazing things. Let me read you her most recent tweet before we hop off that I
Oh, it's
really
embarrassing. That's
loved.
embarrassing. I
I'm
know
gonna
exactly what the last
say it.
That's
You
really
know
bad.
how
That's
in
not
How Low by Ludacris, when the little chipmunk goes, "Get it, get it, get it." I really felt that, and that's today's energy, and I'll leave you with that, and thank you so much for joining us.
there you go. If you know, you know. You know?
Thanks so much for tuning in today to Seed to Harvest. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever your favorite podcast listening platform is. I'll be releasing new episodes weekly, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know on Twitter. That's Paige Finn, Paige and then Finn with 3 N's. Thanks, and see you again next week.